Every month, on the last Friday, Daniel's father came home carrying the same brown envelope. Before he even stepped through the front door, Daniel and his three younger siblings already knew what it meant. Payday. For a few hours, the house felt different. His mother smiled more. Dinner usually included something extra. Sometimes there was bottled soda instead of tap water. For one evening, life felt almost comfortable. By the following Wednesday, the envelope might as well have never existed. The arguments returned, the whispered conversations after midnight, the knock at the gate from someone asking when they would be repaid. Daniel didn't understand numbers yet, but he understood patterns. Every month began with relief and ended with worry. Then the cycle quietly started again. His parents weren't unemployed, quite the opposite. Both woke before sunrise every weekday, put on neatly ironed clothes, and left for work carrying lunch containers packed the night before. They earned salaries that arrived every single month, almost like clockwork. Yet somehow, payday never seemed to move the family any closer to peace. As Daniel grew older, he started noticing something strange. Families living on the same street, earning what seemed like similar incomes, lived completely different lives. One neighbor replaced his car every few years. Another quietly sent all three of his children to university. An elderly couple across the road never seemed worried whenever unexpected expenses appeared. Nobody had won the lottery. Nobody looked unusually wealthy. Yet some salaries seemed to disappear, while others quietly built security. The question followed Daniel everywhere. If a salary couldn't build wealth, why did some salaried workers retire comfortably? And if it could, why had his parents spent their entire lives working without ever feeling financially secure? Years later, that question would send him down a path that completely changed the way he looked at every paycheck he would ever receive. Because the greatest financial lesson he would ever learn wasn't about earning more money. It was about giving every salary a mission before spending a single dollar of it. His first job was in the finance department of a regional manufacturing company, processing invoices nobody would ever ask about. On payday, the parking lot buzzed before lunch. Coworkers already planning shopping trips, upgraded phones, weekend getaways. Almost nobody talked about net worth. The word salary filled every conversation. The word wealth rarely appeared beside it. One rainy afternoon, sorting old files, Daniel found an abandoned retirement seminar handout. Its first line read, "Your salary is not your wealth. It is your largest wealth-building tool." He read it 3 times. For years, he'd believed a paycheck was something you survived on. This suggested it was an engine, not a destination. That night, he skipped television and sat with a notebook, a calculator, and a pay slip that grew cold beside his coffee. He wrote one question at the top of the page: where does every dollar go? The answer wasn't reckless spending. It was invisible leakage. Streaming subscriptions renewing quietly. Coffee runs that never looked expensive alone but added up into a number that startled him. He wasn't budgeting yet. He was observing. And observation became the beginning of transformation. The following weekend, he found himself at the personal finance shelf of the public library. Books on investing, compound interest, cash flow, asset allocation, all repeating one idea in different words. People don't become wealthy because they earn a salary. They become wealthy because they decide what every salary will do before it arrives. His childhood suddenly made sense. His parents hadn't lacked income. They'd lacked a system. The first lesson turned out to be almost embarrassingly simple. The moment a salary arrives, it should already have a job. Most people do the opposite. Spend first, then hope something survives until the next payday. Hoping isn't a strategy. It's a gamble. Daniel changed the order of his own paycheck, paying his future self before anything else. A small automatic transfer the same day his salary landed, not because the amount was impressive, but because he was practicing a principle bigger than any single number. Consistency beats intensity. Waiting for a raise before saving is a trap, because lifestyle usually grows exactly as fast as income. A person earning $3,000 a month can feel broke. A person earning $10,000 can feel just as broke. The difference isn't the paycheck, it's the system controlling it. He remembered a seminar speaker later drawing 2 columns on a whiteboard. Income on one side, net worth on the other. explaining that most careers are spent obsessing over the first number, while the second quietly determines everything about a person's actual freedom. Someone earning $100,000 a year with no assets, she said, can be less secure than someone earning half that with a decade of investments behind them. Income buys a lifestyle. Assets buy a future. He split every salary into 4 assignments before he could spend a cent of it: protection, growth, living expenses, and enjoyment. Unassigned money, he learned, always finds a way to disappear. Quick question: have you ever received a paycheck only to wonder where it all went a week later? If this video is already changing the way you think about your salary, subscribe now. Every week, we break down the hidden psychology behind money, investing, and wealth building into practical lessons you can actually use. Now, let's see why one mistake quietly destroys almost every salary increase people ever receive. Protection came first. The emergency fund. He'd watched his family lose entire months to a single broken appliance or medical bill. Without a cushion, an emergency simply becomes debt. Nobody borrows because they want to. They borrow because they have no choice. He started with 1 month of essential expenses, then grew toward 3 to 6. Not for vacations, just rent, food, transportation, insurance. He kept the account separate from his checking, out of sight, unglamorous, growing a little with every deposit he almost forgot about. The fund didn't just change his bank balance. It changed his mind. Problems that once felt like disasters became inconveniences instead. A car repair was annoying rather than catastrophic. A medical bill was stressful, but survivable because neither could touch the money he'd already promised to his future. Growth came next, and this was the part that used to confuse him. Investing had always sounded like a guessing game, predicting the next winning stock. What he found in the research was almost the opposite. Long-term wealth is rarely built by guessing. It's built through patience, ownership, and time. He learned about broad market index funds and ETFs, which let an investor own small slices of hundreds of companies instead of betting on one. He learned to prioritize any employer-matching retirement contribution, since a guaranteed match is one of the rarest things finance offers. And he adopted dollar-cost averaging, investing a fixed amount every month regardless of whether the market was up or down, removing emotion from the equation entirely. His father's instinct in a bad month had always been fear and urgency. Investing taught Daniel patience and delayed gratification instead, planting a seed today without demanding a tree tomorrow. Then came lifestyle, the force that quietly undoes progress for people who are otherwise doing everything right. Daniel first felt it after his first meaningful raise, when his reliable, slightly faded old car suddenly felt embarrassing. Though nothing about the car had changed, only his expectations had. He caught himself pricing newer vehicles before remembering a rule from his research. Every lifestyle upgrade creates a future obligation. A bigger apartment means bigger rent forever, not just once. So he replaced one question with another. Instead of, "Can I afford this?" he began asking, "Will this make my future better, or just my present more expensive?" A $500 monthly upgrade feels small in isolation, but invested instead across decades, that same money can represent real future wealth. Every financial decision, he realized, carries 2 prices: what it costs today and what it prevents tomorrow. None of this meant living joylessly. Daniel still traveled, still ate out, still bought things he valued. He simply built what he called a freedom budget, a category guilt-free spending only unlocked once the first 3 assignments were funded. Financial discipline was never supposed to feel like punishment. It was supposed to create room. That was the piece his parents had missed. Every dollar they earned had a destination: the landlord, the utility company, the grocery store, except their own future. Everyone got paid before the family they were building. Daniel flipped that order: future first, protection second, responsibilities third, enjoyment last, automatically every single payday before he had the chance to talk himself out of it. Years later, over coffee at a small corner table, Daniel caught up with his old friend Marcus. Same salary, same pay schedule, same working hours, yet somehow always counting down to the next paycheck. "What happens to your money the day it arrives?" Daniel asked. "Depends on the month." Marcus laughed. An honest answer and a common one, because for most people, a financial plan only exists in the leftovers. Wealth doesn't come from leftovers. It comes from priorities. Daniel pulled a napkin across the table and sketched his 4-box system: protect, grow, operate, enjoy. Marcus studied it for a moment. That's it. That's it. Not a spreadsheet, not a secret formula, just an order, repeated on autopilot every time a paycheck landed. Simple systems are powerful precisely because they can be repeated for hundreds of ordinary months in a row without anyone having to feel motivated first. Daniel also learned that building wealth wasn't only about growing money, it was about protecting it. A person could have a healthy portfolio and still be financially fragile without the right coverage in place. Insurance stopped feeling like an unnecessary expense and started looking like a financial shield, preventing one bad month from forcing him to liquidate investments or take on high-interest debt at the worst possible time. He also grew more careful about debt in general, learning that not all borrowing is equal. A reasonable mortgage or an education loan could build real value over time, while credit card balances and fast depreciating purchases simply borrowed against a future that hadn't arrived yet. Every dollar lost to unnecessary interest was a dollar that could have been compounding in an index fund instead. Years passed. Daniel eventually sat his own children down and placed 2 coins on the table. "This isn't about how much money you have," he told them. "It's about what you teach your money to do. Money has no direction of its own. It follows instructions, and the person giving those instructions is you." Later, standing outside his childhood home, Daniel finally understood his parents without anger. They weren't careless or lazy. They knew how to earn, how to provide, how to survive. Nobody had ever shown them how to convert income into wealth. 2 people can receive an identical salary. One turns it into assets. The other only maintains a lifestyle. And 10 years on, their lives look nothing alike. Not because one was smarter, but because their money followed different instructions. He began telling young workers that a first paycheck is a test, whether you become a consumer of money or a builder with it. Because every payday, advertising, social media, and the neighborhood around you all quietly pressure you to upgrade. None of that is automatically wrong. The problem starts the moment your lifestyle grows faster than your net worth. The gap between income and assets that actually defines wealth. At a career development event, a young man named Ethan approached Daniel after his talk, notebook still open. He just started his first job and wanted to know where to begin. "I don't earn much yet," he said. "Should I wait until my salary increases before I start investing?" Daniel recognized the question instantly. It was the exact one he'd asked himself years earlier. "How much do you think you need before you start building?" he asked. Ethan thought it over. "Maybe when I earn twice as much." Daniel smiled. Many people say that. Then they double their income and discover their expenses doubled too. Financial habits scale. Someone who can't manage $500 well usually struggles managing $5,000, while someone who builds discipline on a small income carries those same skills forward when the income grows. The numbers change. The principles never do. He also came to understand something his own father never had language for. The biggest threat to most investors isn't the market, it's their own behavior. Panic selling during a downturn, chasing headlines, abandoning a plan out of fear. So Daniel automated everything, removing emotional decisions from his financial routine entirely. The money moved before he could spend it. The investing happened before he could second-guess it. At lunch one day, his old colleague James, nice car, sharp suits, a social feed full of vacations, laid out his week between bites. The mortgage payment, the car payment, the credit card balance he was chipping away at, the next promotion he was already angling for. He admitted he earned more than he'd ever imagined as a young man, yet somehow still felt like he was chasing something just out of reach. Daniel asked one question: "How much of your salary belongs to your future?" James went quiet, not because he didn't know the number, but because he'd never once calculated it. Most people know exactly what they earn and roughly what they spend, but rarely measure how much of it is actually building the person they want to become. That number, Daniel had learned, matters more than the salary figure ever will. Talking to his younger sister Maria one evening, who admitted she felt behind despite a good income, Everyone around her seemed to have better cars, better houses, better lives. Daniel asked a simple question. If nobody could see your life, what financial decisions would you make differently? Maria went quiet because the question exposed something universal. A lot of spending isn't about need at all. It's about communicating status to people watching. But wealth doesn't require an audience. The best financial decisions, the automatic investment nobody sees, the untouched emergency fund nobody praises, years of quietly saying, not yet, stay invisible right up until the freedom they create becomes impossible to ignore. Years on, sitting with his own son over his first real paycheck, Daniel wrote 4 words at the top of a notebook. Earn, protect, grow, enjoy. He didn't want to take away the joy of a first salary. Money should be enjoyed, but he wanted his son to understand a paycheck is a responsibility as much as a reward, and that whatever isn't prioritized today, the future ends up paying for later. At a neighborhood gathering back on his old street, someone asked Daniel the one thing every beginner should do first. Understand your cash flow, he said. Track it, not to judge yourself, but to see the truth your spending already tells about your priorities. From there, build percentages that fit your own life. Something toward the future, something toward protection, something toward living, something toward joy. The mistake was never spending money. It was spending everything before building anything. Looking back across all of it, Daniel realized the biggest transformations in his life were never the loud ones. Not the raises, not the best performing month in the market, not a single compliment about his lifestyle. They were the quiet ones. An automatic transfer he nearly forgot about. An old car kept 1 more year. A decision to cook at home instead of spending money he hadn't planned to spend. Wealth is almost always built in ordinary moments nobody is watching, which is exactly why it's so often invisible from the outside. 2 people can drive the same car, one owning it comfortably, the other quietly straining every month just to keep up appearances. The formula, when he finally wrote it down for himself, was almost insultingly simple. Protect yourself first. Pay your future self automatically. Manage your lifestyle so it doesn't outgrow your income. Invest consistently and let compounding do the slow, invisible work of turning ordinary contributions into extraordinary outcomes. Enjoy the rest without guilt. The execution is the hard part because the world constantly whispers the opposite advice. Spend now, upgrade now, look successful now. Daniel thought often about the boy who once watched a brown envelope arrive every month and disappear just as quickly. That boy believed wealth belonged to people with special opportunities, a business, an inheritance, the right connections. What he discovered instead was something far more available. An ordinary salary, given clear instructions and enough time, can quietly become the foundation of an extraordinary life. Not through a single dramatic breakthrough, but through the same small decision repeated at every payday for years. Protect it, invest it, guard it from lifestyle creep, and only then enjoy it. Give every dollar a purpose before it has the chance to disappear. Money, Daniel came to believe, was never the point. It was simply the mechanism. The real product was choice. The choice to leave work that no longer served him, to handle a crisis without panic, to say no to something that didn't align with his values, to live on his own terms, instead of whatever terms his paycheck happened to allow that month. If this changed the way you think about your own paycheck, subscribe to TED Wealth Theory. Every week, we uncover the hidden psychology behind money and the practical systems that help ordinary people build extraordinary wealth, one financial decision at a time. Now that you know how to give every paycheck a purpose, here's the next question. What should you do when that system finally helps you save enough for a home? Is buying really the smartest financial move, or can renting sometimes build more wealth? In the next episode, we'll break down one of the biggest money debates and uncover the answer with real numbers, not popular opinion. Until then, remember, wealth isn't built by one big payday. It's built by the small decisions you make every payday. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.